sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply not react, and that's hard because sometimes things will hit a nerve, whether it's a message, a comment, a look, a bit of disrespect, something you notice that you perhaps weren't meant to notice, something, or someone says something or doesn't say something, and in the moment the old version of you might want to react immediately. You want to say something, you want to defend yourself, you want to let your ego prove a point, you want to make them understand that it hurt you. But not everything deserves instant reaction. Sometimes the reaction is exactly what gives the situation more power than what it actually deserves. And I think this is part of being in emotional control. It's not pretending that you don't feel anything, because you will feel stuff. You are human, unless you're a robot from the future watching this video for some data harvesting processes. But you will feel something. You might be annoyed, you might be disappointed, you might feel hurt, you might feel disrespected, you might feel angry. But there is a difference between feeling something and letting that feeling control what you do next. The gap matters, the gap between what happens and how you respond, or if you respond at all. This is where self-respect lives, because if every small thing that happens in life can pull a reaction out of you, then everyone or anyone has too much access to your peace. One comment can ruin your day, one message can change your mood, one thing you notice may ruin your day. One thing you saw starts living in your head. And, if a person's opinion becomes more important than how you see yourself, then that's a dangerous place to live, And you're going to have these moments in life where, you'll see something that you probably weren't meant to see, and it might sting, You might react in that moment, you might not react in that moment. I would advise not to react in the moment. Don't turn things that don't need to be a confrontation into a confrontation. Sometimes you just have to notice things, let things sit, process it. Don't address everything in the moment, just process the information, take it as information. You don't always need to win every moment in life. You don't always need to make someone admit their wrongdoing. Sometimes you just take the information, you see where someone is at, you try to see things from their perspective, you see what they might be going through in their own life, and you see how the thing makes you feel. And then you can decide what you do moving forward. This doesn't mean you bottle everything up so that one day you explode. It just means you're able to process things in a quick, fashionable way, which doesn't result in problems, getting worse. You don't. It's not to say that you let people disrespect you. It doesn't mean you never have hard conversations. It just means you don't let every emotional trigger turn into a version of yourself you don't respect. Because there are some reactions that feel good for 5 minutes, but create problems for days or weeks or months. Whether it's an angry message or a sarcastic comment or a public dig, or losing your composure in any particular moment. The need to make someone feel bad because they made you feel bad. None of this really gives you peace. It just keeps you tied to the situation. Sometimes remain calm, cool and collected is the best move. Generally always the best move, I would probably say. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is strength. And it's a way of you saying, I saw it, I felt it, I was there, but I'm not giving it control over me. That's powerful, because the real win is not always being understood. You'd never be always understood by everybody who's out there. The real win is being able to walk away from a situation with your dignity intact. You can feel hurt and still be calm. You can feel disrespected and still choose maturity. You can notice something painful and still decide not to hand your whole evening to it. That is real strength. Not loud strength, not ego strength, real strength. The kind where you trust yourself enough to pause, you know. So things are going to happen in life. Things are going to, make you hit a nerve, whether you're driving down the road and someone cuts you up, whether you have a confrontation with somebody at work, or whether you're in a tricky spot in your relationship. Whenever you feel like something's hitting a nerve, you need to stop and ask yourself. You need to rewire your brain and ask yourself, how do I react to this situation? What response would I respect tomorrow? That question often changes everything, because not everything deserves a reaction. Some things deserve just to be noticed. Use it as information, and then you can move accordingly. I'm Jake O'Neill. You've been watching Jake O'Neill UK. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you in the next one.